So Jordan Peterson at Room for Discussion in Amsterdam. I did a previous video on this, on Jordan's answer to the toxic masculinity question, but I thought I should back up a bit and go more towards the beginning because there's some other interesting parts of the interview. Here, in my previous video, I described these guys as Dumb and Dumber, or the Gordon fishermen, because they're going after the lobster. And then I finally thought of the guys from Deadliest Catch. That's maybe more appropriate. And I said, just imagine these guys as they are dressed up here, but put them in the Deadliest Catch outfits, and they're trying to reel in our famous cantankerous crustacean here, Jordan Peterson. So here, they start the interview with some softball questions, I would say. And then they start ramping it up because they're trying to catch Jordan in a sort of gotcha moment. They're going to conquer this lobster. So I'll let them begin here. Jordan's going to start to get into politics a little bit, and they're going to take it into some deeper waters.
There are many different groups right now in society who all have, as we experience also with this case, who have their own opinions, and those opinions are sometimes very strong. And over the past years, I think we saw that the extremes became way more visible. If you, for example, look to Charlottesville, and the center voices are often a bit overshadowed, almost. What do you think that says about the public debate? Do you think there's still a room for discussion in the debate?
I don't think it says much about the public debate. I think it's mostly the consequence of a technological transformation. I think that as the mainstream media collapses under the weight of this technological onslaught that's constituted by the web and by YouTube and by podcasts, that their professionalism declines.
Okay, so someone is asking to all sit down so we all can see Jordan Peterson. Okay.
Democracy at work. So what's happening, I think, is twofold. The budget for high-quality journalism is being slashed. That makes the journalists more desperate and less able to spend time on stories. They're fighting for an increasingly small share of an increasingly dispersed market, and they're much more likely to concentrate on polarized issues and also to imitate each other. And so, see, if you look at the situation in the United States, for example, people say, well, it's become more polarized. The data actually indicates that the Republicans, by and large, have moved closer to the center, and the Democrats have moved farther to the left. Yeah. And I don't know what to make of that precisely. But in the United States, people were shell-shocked that Trump was elected, and they thought about that as indication of increasing polarization. It's like, well, 50% of Americans are Republicans. Yeah, that figures. Is that a fire alarm?
I don't think so. No.
That's a common. Sorry, it's a common trick. So I thought that might have been one that was pulled. So.
No, that's not a fire alarm.
And I don't know what Dutch fire alarms sound like. It was kind of.
I think they sound kind of like that.
Okay. Well, anyways, I mean, it's been 4 decades, or 4 elections in the United States where it was 50% Republican and 50% Democrat, right down the middle, and really tight. Exactly the same thing happened in the last election. So it's like, where's the polarization? It's not happening at the public level. Now, I mean, Trump is kind of an anomalous candidate, but when I look at the American election, I think the idea that Trump won that election is preposterous. Obviously, what happened was Hillary Clinton lost that election, and she roundly deserved it. She abandoned the group of people that could have put her over the top. She chose to campaign in New York and California primarily, even though she'd already won majorities there. It's like, and she abandoned key sections of the American working class. Plus, she pandered to the radicals and played identity politics. It's like it was her presidency to lose, and she certainly managed to lose it, even though she doesn't seem to have completely admitted that yet.
Okay.
So,
To connect with you to what you just said about identity politics, we also want to talk about that during the interview, and we want to start off by saying that today we are, of course, in Amsterdam, and it's the capital of the Netherlands, and the Netherlands was the first country in the world who legalized gay marriage, actually in 2001.
So did you see the smile on his face as he transitioned there from the identity politics into this question? Notice their paperwork there. If you haven't seen the interview, keep an eye on that. And I think this is where I might want to introduce my clip from Deadliest Catch. Or maybe I'll let him answer. I'll let him ask the question first, and then I will play you what it reminds me of in Deadliest Catch.
And so we wanted to start off with a kind of a straightforward question to you. Are you in favor of gay marriage, of legalizing that by law?
well, I'm in favor of marriage, and I'm in favor of the continuity of marriage. And
So here's where I think, let me mute this and then, Jerry, what button do I hit to insert the clip? Jerry, wake up! What button do I hit to insert the clip? Here we go.
Hold and each end to make 2 lassos.
Holy that thing is huge. I'd probably have Freddie try and hook it. Maybe we get lucky and snag something with the claw hook.
And see if you can hook the butthole. Roger.
Oh, boy, I got a whiff of that.
Now unmute. Testing.
And I think it's a reasonable social experiment to extend that the way it has been extended. So, I mean, homosexuality has been around forever. It looks like, particularly on the male end of the distribution, that has a fairly powerful biological component. It seems like a reasonable experiment. I mean, it leaves open questions because we have no idea what the long-term viability of such relationships might be compared to heterosexual relationships. That's a completely open question. And we also don't know to what degree it's optimal.
So here, just in case you didn't get it, you know, Jordan is this dead walrus in the ocean water, and these guys are trying to pull him in for some reason. They're going after this this prize in the ocean, and it's this bloated walrus from the clip. Sometimes I have to explain these things, so I hope you don't mind.
For the development of children to have both a male and female role model close by. But my suspicions are those things can be dealt with in an effective manner, and I suspect that it's better for children to have 2 parents than 1. Now, I think the conservatives who objected to the legalization of gay marriage had their point, because they believed that the institution of marriage had been under sustained assault for a substantial amount of time, which is something I also happen to believe. And so they had their reasons for resisting further change. But I think you can make a strong conservative argument for the utility of gay marriage, as well as a libertarian or liberal argument. So we'll see. And we've also developed a consensus around that that's pretty much universal across the West. And so that's how we decide things. We develop a consensus. And it doesn't look like it's ushered in the apocalypse. So far, so good.
Well, the reason...
So he gives a very nuanced answer, a very reasonable answer, and now these guys, they're going after it. They can sense the blood is in the water now.
We ask is because...
There he's picking up the paper.
Please don't...
Well, we actually have a quote of you about your opinion on gay marriage and regarding gay marriage in Australia, and you've said, quote, "I would be against it if it was backed by cultural Marxists, because it isn't clear to me whether it will satisfy the ever-increasing demand for an assault on traditional modes of being." But don't you think that
And you could see the look on Jordan's face. Now he sees what this interview really is. A gotcha interview. It's not a real conversation. It's not a stand-up, straight and honest interview. It's deceptive.
opposing gay marriage just because it was it's also in the agenda, as you say, of cultural Marxists is problematic, and it's kind of against your principles as a principally liberal person.
Now cue the second clip from Deadliest Catch, which I will get a copyright strike from Discovery Channel for using.
Oh, Freddie!
I can't spend all day on this thing.
No, 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 no! Somebody go get a survival suit! Holy what are you doing?
Get this.
Somebody go get a survival suit!
Fred, hey, what are you doing? That's these things.
Get the life sling, guys! Holy the guy's a maniac!
Look, another one. The swing! Joe, give him the life swing! Get the life swing!
What the Freddie, don't do this to me!
If Freddie doesn't get out of the water in 60 seconds, hypothermia could set in. He could die.
Freddie just disrobed and jumped in the water on me. I don't know what he's thinking.
I said if, right? So if you read the quote again, that's what it started with. I mean, it's complicated when you're trying to determine what stance to take on a particular issue, because it's very complicated to determine just exactly what the issue is. So for example, with this notorious Bill C-16, or perhaps my notorious response to it, those who regard themselves as my enemies chose to focus on the element of the legislation that was relevant to, at least in principle, relevant to the well-being of transgender people. Now, I'm not so sure it was relevant to the well-being of transgender people, but because I looked at the methodology that was used to do the public surveys, for example, prior to the introduction of the legislation, and they were handled in an absolutely incompetent manner. And I think, but the issue was with Bill C-16, well, was it about the rights of transgender people, or was it about the desire of a certain ideological group to write a social constructionist view of gender into Canadian law, or was it about compelled speech? It's like, it's not obvious. You have to be a careful diagnostician to make such judgments. I believed that it was fundamentally an issue of compelled speech and the desire to write a social constructionist view of gender into Canadian law. And so I opposed it on those grounds, and I think I was correct. Now, people could say, well, you know, isn't it rather reprehensible of you to object to the extension of rights to transgender individuals? It's like, well, it depends on your level of analysis. So these are complicated things.
It's maybe good that you brought up Bill C-16, because there's also been two recent hot topics. I don't know if you know, but in the Netherlands 3 weeks ago, the first official non-gender passport was given to a Dutch citizen. At the same time, in the US, of course, the new Trump bill, which considers to narrowly define gender as something that's immutable and that's totally based on genitalia at birth is...
Notice how they keep using the word gender. It's almost impossible not to use the word gender, but that's not... I believe the roots of that word are kind of interesting, to say the least. Really, they're talking about sex, male or female, and then there are, of course, exceptions to the rule, but what's happening is that we're basing new rules off of the exceptions.
Is now a potential law. So if you had to choose between these two laws, which one would you pick?
Well, if you're transgendered, is it immutable?
I don't know.
Right.
Dumb and Dumber.
Neither does anyone else. And so there's tremendous incoherencies in the theory. So at the moment, for example, it's...
That guy is just like the guy in Deadliest Catch. His shirt is off, his pants are off, he's floundering in ice-cold water.
perfectly reasonable to formulate the proposition, and this is very characteristic of let's say the ideological types who drove Bill C-16, to say you can be a man born in a woman's body, which is a biologically determinist argument, and to say that gender is socially constructed, and to say that it's a personal choice. It's like, sorry, all three of those things cannot simultaneously be true. So there's going to be a variety of legislative responses to that, but mostly it's just incoherent. And I also think that it's driven by something deeper. It's driven, at least in part, by the desire to destabilize traditional perceptual and cognitive categories. And I see that as part of an assault on the idea of categorization itself that's been undertaken with a fair bit of success in the universities since the 1970s. And so generally speaking, I'm opposed to such things. I don't believe that introducing confusion about gender identity into the lives of young people at an early age is going to have a net positive consequence. We'll see, but I doubt it.
And with that, you know the drill. Like and subscribe. Beep, beep.